This is A10, the quadratic formula. So in order to understand what the quadratic formula is and how it works, let's take a look at the standard form of a quadratic equation and solve for the roots. And of course, we'll do this by completing the square like we previously have. So first step, we'll subtract our constant, get them all on one side. So c's cancel here. We're left with ax squared plus bx equals negative c. Now we want the coefficient of our quadratic term, so this a here, to be 1. So in order to do that, I'll divide everything by a. I'm going to rewrite it down here. So we're left with x squared plus b over ax plus blank equals negative c over a plus blank. Okay, so now I'll take my b over a and divide it by 2, which is the same thing as multiplying by 1/2. Okay, and that gets me b over 2a, which I know now is my magic number. So in order to fill in my blanks or complete the square, I need to square this b over 2a, or my magic number, and I'm left with b squared over 4a squared. Remember, whenever we have an exponent, it applies to both the numerator and the denominator. So I'll fill in my blank. Awesome. Okay, so now I'll take this and I'll simplify it down here. So I know I can factor the left side by using my magic number. So I've got x plus b over 2a all squared equals, now I need to add these up over here. So I'll do that down below. So first I know I need a common denominator. So if I write it out, I've got negative c over a plus b squared over 4a squared. So I've got an a in my denominator down here and 4a squared over here. So I know this fraction is missing a 4a, so I'll multiply the top and the bottom by 4a. That leaves me with negative 4ac plus b squared all over 4a squared. So that is after I multiply the numerator and the denominator by 4a and then combine them and put them under, or put them over one denominator. So I'll write that right here. Okay, so now let me switch colors here. Now let's solve for x. So we know we need to take the square root of this side. Whatever we do to one side, we have to do to the other. So I'm left with x plus b over 2a equals plus or minus the square root of negative 4ac plus b squared all over the square root of 4a squared. So I'll simplify what I can under my radicals. So I'm left with x plus b over 2a equals plus or minus. I can't do anything to the top, but what I will do is I'll switch the order. So I'll put the b squared first and then move the negative 4ac over to the right side. So I've got the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over, well, I know the square root of 4 is 2, and the square root of a squared is just a. So now I can simplify this entire thing, or solve for x, by subtracting my b over 2a. So once I do that, my x is finally alone. So I get x equals negative b over 2a plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, also all over 2a. So since these have common denominators, I'm just going to put my negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over just 1 2a. So I know that x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And it turns out this right here is my quadratic formula. Okay, so by completing the square of this for the standard form of a quadratic equation, so finding the roots, we come up with this formula: x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Pause the video if you need more time. So what we are left with is called the quadratic formula. Now that we know this formula, as long as we can identify what a, b, and c are, we can plug them into this formula and solve for our roots. At this time, you may go to the example video for A10, the quadratic formula.